Okay, welcome back to the Wild West Tennis Podcast, brought to you by QualityShot Tennis. Today is a real treat. We've got an Emmy Award-winning sports broadcaster and anchor. He hails from Rhode Island, but that's not all. A fine tennis player in his own right. He played Division I tennis at Rutgers, had some matches on the ATP Tour, and has produced and is the host of World Tennis, which I'd like you to get into, Harry. By the way, this is Harry Cicma, host of World Tennis and producer since 2009. Harry, can we start with that? Just tell us a little bit about your show, World Tennis.
Well, Brad, I mean, I don't do a lot of public appearances, but for you, anything. And I'm from Rhode Island. I'm from Providence, and from the state that is the home of the Newport International Tennis Hall of Fame. But my second home is also New Jersey because I went to Rutgers, and right next to New York City. So I feel like I have four homes. One is Rhode Island, New England. The second is New Jersey, New York, and the third is Miami. And they're all great tennis areas. And World Tennis is my first ever production that I ever did. It's called World Tennis with Harry Cicma. And I started it back before high definition existed. We were doing standard definition, and it was like, 2010? No, 2009. So do the math. I mean, that was like 13 years ago. And I was just like interviewing John McEnroe with like a little handheld camera. And back then I was like literally one of the only people who shot their own stuff, who shot their own camera work. But now everyone's doing it. But back then I came up with the idea of producing my own show, editing it, writing it. Now it's evolved where I don't shoot my own camera work anymore. I have like crews out. We'll go to events. We'll interview people. Events also like pay us to go. I mean, it is a business. So like we'll have certain events hire us to go out and do the red carpet interviews, shoot the video, edit like a sizzle reel for them, but then also do a whole show for them. And we air our main station that's like dear to my heart is Nesson, which is New England Sports Net, which is the home of the Boston Red Sox, which is huge. It also airs nationally, but we're also on AT&T Sportsnet, Masson, some of the NBC sports stations have aired us, and we're on all over the place. Like, I don't even know, to be honest. Like, there are people who like will take a screenshot from Hawaii or like Boise, Idaho. They're like, "Oh, I'm watching you." So like, we're on a lot. We're on like 20 stations, and it's my baby. Like, I don't do sales. I'm not a salesman, even though I come off as if I am one. But it's the one. It's the one production I do that I do try to like sell. And we have a partnership with Magic City Highlight in Miami, which is cool. They're a sponsor, and Albrecht Automotive in New England. They're the Infiniti and Toyota dealership. They're our two big sponsors. So it's a great show. You're always welcome. And it's one of many things we do. I mean, that's just one of many small things we do.
Yeah. And Harry, is that, one of the things I remember always watching you do right before the Indian Wells tournament. I can't remember. Is it called the Taste of Tennis?
Exactly. Yep.
So that's something I always knew you were affiliated with. I didn't know exactly whom you were working for, but you were, I saw you out there doing the interviews.
Well, it's funny because, I learned from tennis. Tennis taught me about the media. Granted, I interned at NBC when I was at Rutgers. I was interning at NBC, but I also worked as a, by the way, as I mentioned, I'm in New Jersey, so you can hear a lot of acoustics, but that's authentic. I think a fire truck just drove by. But anyway, it's the holiday season
awesome
here.
If you got pulled over, look, forget the tennis.
It's the holiday. Yeah, it's the holiday season. I mean, Hanukkah started. I celebrate Christmas. I know Brad celebrates Hanukkah, but this is, I'm driving in the holidays. So anyway, back to what you said. Tennis taught me about the media, and there's no better place to learn than tennis because it's international. And when you produce the U.S. Open, there's a world feed, as you know, and that feed goes to the whole world. So you have one feed in America. We watch it on ESPN. But in Europe, it could be Sky Sports, or it could be Star Sports. So that's what taught me that's what taught me about more acoustics. But anyway, that's what taught me about doing a world feed in production. And that's really what we do. We'll produce things and send it all over. Very rarely do we do something just for one network. We usually do it for a lot of different networks and keep the production generic. And that's what we've done for Taste of Tennis. You know, we've done that for Billie Jean King and like, you know, some of her productions for really a lot of clients and a lot of different sports. But Taste of Tennis is one of our big ones.
Yeah, and Indian Wells. And Harry, back to the U.S. Open. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's where, well, it's not where I first met you. I'm going to get to that before we get off because that's when actually you were playing it. Oh, screw it. I'm going to just tell you when I first met you, you were playing doubles main draw at San Jose.
Yeah.
2004.
That's where we first met, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't big time me. Yeah, you were a player. I think you and your partner played against Meltzer and somebody. That was the match I saw.
Karsten Brosh and Meltzer.
Yeah, the guy that used to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually met. I was there. I was doing a profile on Marty Fish for Tennis Week magazine. As you know, he beat Agassi there in the semis and then lost to Roddick in the final. But that's where we first met, was when you were on the court. But I know you more in your role as a broadcaster. Harry, were you covering, were you broadcasting matches for the world feed in those early days into the early 2000s?
Man, I mean, honestly, it's so, I can explain it, but like the media is so confusing behind the scenes. You know, when you watch TV, it's very simple. It's like, oh, I'm watching tennis. But behind the scenes, there are, especially in sports, there's so many avenues. And I have my hand in every single avenue of sports media. But I mean, ultimately, your question was world feed. Well, to answer that question, I was at Rutgers University and someone taught me, you're a fellow tennis guy, but someone taught me, Harry, you're a great tennis player, but you're not John McEnroe. You're not Andre Agassi. You're not Pete Sampras. So even though you love tennis, and this is when I was an intern at NBC, John Miller, the president of NBC Sports, met with me to mentor me. He says, Harry, you want to be a tennis announcer? I'm sorry. Do that as one of your things, but don't do it as your main thing because you're not John McEnroe. And it was the best advice anyone's ever given me. So my first job, ironically, was the world feed, and I was still in college. And I used my Rutgers University football demo that I was doing on the Rutgers student radio, and I sent it to the USTA and the US Open, and they hired me based on my Rutgers University demo. I don't think they realized I was in college at the time. The demo was good, and they're like, whoa, you cover Notre Dame football, Rutgers, and like Ohio State and all these random big games. And they're like, you're good. We'll let you do the US Open radio. So I was doing that. And then someone, I guess, couldn't work one day. So they let me do the world feed a couple times with Joel Drucker, with our friend Joel. So that was my first ever job in TV ever, was the world feed at the US Open when I was like 22 years old.
So that leads me to my next question. If you were doing a world feed with Joel Drucker, I'm guessing that you're the play-by-play guy.
Yeah, he was color. He was color.
Right. But you're fortunate. Your background as a broadcaster allows you to do both.
Yes. And I'll be quite honest with you. It's kind of been a little bit of, I don't want to call it a problem because I really enjoy productions in tennis. And I focus mostly on productions in tennis now. Like clients will hire my company to produce and distribute their tennis. And sometimes they say, Harry, we want you to be on TV. But for the big time networks, like our friends at Tennis Channel, who we know, and, even NBC and CBS, the big ones, people say, Harry, why aren't you doing Wimbledon? Why aren't you doing the Olympics? And I think it's confused them a little bit because, like, I could be doing the play-by-play, but then people are like, yeah, but Harry was only ranked in doubles on the tour. Harry wasn't John McEnroe, but they're like, no, but as an announcer, Harry's a really good anchor, because I anchor right now for CBS Network, and like I've done NBC in New York for 10 years. They're like, Harry, forget Harry's tennis. He could do the announcing like an announcer, like Brett Haber or like Ted Robinson. And then it confuses people. They're like, wait, but we know Harry as a tennis player. He was good, but he wasn't like the best, like McEnroe. So I almost feel like it hurts me in tennis because I'll do like football or something, and they're like, "Oh, Harry's a great announcer," and they don't even think about me because I don't play football. But then in tennis, it confuses people. They're like, "I know Harry as a player. He was on tour. He was good, but not great. So why would we have him do Wimbledon? Because he's a good announcer, because he actually does the anchoring."
Well, it's similar to someone like maybe Jason Goodall, the British. Well, now he used to mainly do World Feed, but now he's with ESPN with everybody, like most people in your position. Jason he was actually a Fed Cup captain, and he had some experience on the tour as well. But he wasn't known for that, like you mentioned, McEnroe and Jimmy Arias, Leaf Shires, obviously Brad Gilbert. We could go on. So I get it, but your knowledge of the tennis is something why I really wanted to talk to you, apart from your experience as a broadcaster. Right. Well, let me ask you this, Harry, since you did cover the early U.S. Opens in the 2000s. If I would have told you in start of 2004 in January, hey, Harry, we had a good year for Americans last year. Roddick won the Open. Agassi won the Australian Open. Do you think it's going to be over 20 years or more until we get another singles title from a U.S. men's player?
No, I never would have thought this. And I never would have thought it would be this type of a drought. And people say it's because of Federer and Nadal, and those guys wiped out a couple generations, and Novak now. I mean, I don't think they helped wipe out I don't think they helped our cause, because I'm a staunch American tennis fan. I mean, literally, like, I'm obsessed with American tennis. It's like really important to me. I still love Nadal, and I respect all the people from Europe. Thomas Muster was my favorite tennis player, besides Agassi, besides Andre. But I really want an American winner, and I used to love Roddick and everything. I grew up with Roddick, but basically, I think a lot of it is the work ethic. It really is, because Agassi and Sampras was just a beast. I mean, Sampras literally was just like a monster. He was a silent monster. But Agassi's work ethic, you saw when Gil Reyes took him in after he got divorced and his life fell apart. He started working like a dog. And the only person that ever worked harder was Jim Courier. And those guys were the hardest working players in tennis history. And that work ethic has just gone away. I mean, Roddick worked hard, but I don't know. I mean, I guess Federer really did hurt Roddick, but right now it's been the work ethic that's really been a problem. I mean, Novak's work ethic is insane, right? I mean, because he might not work as hard, but he dedicates his whole life to it. And that essentially is work ethic. Federer's sort of a freak of nature. Nadal's work ethic is like insane. So Nadal and Djokovic, the two best, 1 and 2 best of all time, their work ethic was like Courier and like Agassi, and that's why they're the best. Taylor Fritz's work ethic is great. It's getting better. Maybe that's why he's top 10, but it's not like those guys, right? And Tiafoe's now starting to work harder, starting to get more serious. So that's why he's starting to get better, but it's still not like what Agassi was doing, right? So I really do think they say like work ethic. And, maybe sometimes we have it too easy here and all this other stuff, but that's really been the difference.
I love the point you're making, Harry, because that's interesting. I haven't heard that. I haven't really heard that ever in the conversation about the American men players. I think it's an interesting perspective, and I get what you mean. It's not that our guys aren't hard workers. It's just that next level thing that Agassi and Jim would do, and the big three. With Taylor Fritz, I think we're now seeing that he's more dedicated in that regard. And I think with Taylor Fritz, what I like, he has what you can't teach, that the competitiveness, and he's a smart player. And I think that's why he's the top one of that group. I think he's got the head and heart combo down. And if he were to, maybe that's where Taylor Fritz steps it up. I don't know. I mean, he seems fit. He's had injuries. But that's a brilliant point. Maybe now they're getting it, like these two guys you mentioned.
Well, here's another example. Marty Fish. Marty was good and then he wasn't great. Then he lost 30 pounds. I remember he lost 30 because I interviewed him on Tennis Channel during the Newport tournament because I was emceeing in my hometown. And I remember, Marty, you lost 30 pounds. And then he became top 10 in the world. So what is that? And he said, Harry, I've never been more dedicated. Why did that happen? Well, it happened because he fell in love with his current wife, and that always has a good effect. But it also it always helps, trust me. But it also happened just because he wanted to be serious. And when he got serious, he went to top 10 in the world.
Right.
So
he qualified for the year-end championship. So yeah, he eventually would have gotten, like I think you said, 10 or 11. So keep going.
That's all it is. I mean, trust me, like that's literally what it is, and like I could speak from experience because I was bad in the 16s, the boys 16s, and I made like a quantum leap. If I had been training the way I trained when I was 16 years old, I would have been top, 300 in the world in singles or something. But I started very late. I was from a cold Rhode Island, freezing, but I trained like a monster. Like Jim Courier was my hero, and I became like a national kind of Kalamazoo level player in 1 year from really bad in the 16. So I learned from those guys, and again, it got me where I got. But those guys who are at a top level, very high level, all they have to do is do that. Jan Michael Gamble, who's a friend of mine, who was a great player, ranked in the top 15 in the world. He had great wins, I believe, over Sampras and Agassi and everyone. He said, Harry, I used to eat McDonald's, and that guy's in really good shape. Like he's like in the best shape in the world. And he said, I look back, and he told me he had regrets. He's like, I don't have real regrets about my career, but I wish I had eaten a little bit better. Because I remember I used to have like French fries before a match once in a while or something like that. Don't quote me on exactly what it was. I don't want to throw Jan under the bus. But he was like, I could have eaten better, he said. And that's an example. Maybe if he had eaten like Novak, maybe Jan would have been a Grand Slam champion because he beat those guys. So it really comes down to just like being a Novak Djokovic beast, being a Rafael Nadal, Novak, Courier, Agassi beast. If you can do that, you get to number one in the world. Now our guys are starting to do it. John Isner's just a great story. I mean, Isner carried American tennis once Roddick retired, and that's just because he was a late bloomer, though. He went to college. He wasn't even supposed to be that good. Like, people didn't think he was going to be like top 10. So he's an overachiever. He's like Todd Martin, Yeah. I mean, you can't hate Isner. You got to respect Isner for carrying the torch for a couple of years. He was a surprise for us. So it's not like you can't say he wasn't a hard worker. He just, he probably didn't work as hard as like, Courier did, but still we're proud of John and we appreciate him. So he's kind of out of the conversation. I'm talking more about the guys like Tiafoe and Fritz. We were expecting them to be good. They were supposed to be good,
And now, like you said, I think they've got the taste for it. Obviously, Tiafoe getting the semifinals this year at the Open. Taylor's amazing, except for the first round loss to Tracy Austin's son at the Open. He had a tremendous fall. So, yeah, those two guys ended the season on a high note. And I'm looking at my notes. We have 9 players in the top 50. That's great for the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
And another fact I uncovered that surprised me is that we won more tournaments on the WTA Tour and the ATP, which is kind of crazy. Like, first place for singles and doubles, the most titles. The U.S. had 22 ATP titles and 21 WTA titles. That's wild. That's a really cool.
We're doing great. I just think I'm just going to sum it up in one sentence. Novak Djokovic is killing us. I mean, and I'm going to say us because I love the international tennis community. I mean, these people are family to me. I don't care where you're from. I don't care if you're from America, but I love American tennis. And truthfully, Djokovic is killing us. I respect Novak. You're great. You're probably the best ever, at least tied with Rafa. And he's just, man, because Fritz isn't beating him, but Fritz is beating Rafa. Fritz can beat Daniil Medvedev. He can beat Alcaraz on a good day, but he's not beating Novak. And Novak proved that in the year-end title. So once Novak slows down, I don't know when. Maybe when he's 40, maybe when he's 39. but when he slows down, we have a fighting chance to have, maybe Tiafoe wins a Grand Slam, maybe Fritz wins a Grand Slam.
Yeah, Djokovic is kryptonite for a lot of players, and it's unfortunate. It's interesting actually because like Medvedev is a bad matchup for Novak. You can't say that about many players, but Medvedev, Djokovic did beat him at the year-end championships, but it was a great 3-set match, and that's a guy he struggles with. Taylor, yeah, he almost beat Rafa at Wimbledon, and he beat him in Indian Wells for the title. So you're right. Novak he's kind of like that guy that, for Brad Gilbert, it was Yvonne Lendl. For Vitas Gerulaitis, it was Jimmy Connors. You don't want to see that happening, but if it is, that's trouble because where Taylor should do well, Novak always does well. Any of the other guys, in that group, in the top 50, you've got Cressy, who's kind of an old school, chip and charge, servant volleyer, played at UCLA. Tommy Paul, I think you're kind of a Tommy Paul fan, or
I think there are a lot of players like he's our friends north of the border from Canada. Felix Auger-Aliassime. Yeah. He's a great player. I mean, I really predicted that he would never win a major, and I think Felix is so good. And man, like he's getting close. He could really prove me wrong. I'm thinking he might prove me wrong, but like I just kind of looked at some holes in his mental game on the court, and I just was like, man, but he might prove me wrong. But I said he would be like an Alex Corretja. He would be like an Alex Corretja. Great player, hangs around the top. Corretja got to number 2 in the world, if I'm not mistaken, but he just won't win. Well, that's what I think about guys like, Tommy Paul. He might be like a Jan Michael Gamble, or a Marty Fish. Great player. Yeah, but like a Marty Fish.
Yeah, and we might see him like the kind of guy we might hopefully get used to seeing him in the second week at majors, but I don't see him in the Final Four, and I don't see him getting to a final or winning one either. Boy, we'd love to be wrong, but that's pretty respectable if he has the kind of career like a Marty Fish. I'll take it. Most guys would. And, touching maybe on, and I'm glad you brought up Felix, because he also was another player that, especially with Davis Cup, ended the year like Taylor on a high note. The other guy that had probably the best end of the season was Ben Shelton. He won 3 challengers in a row. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Daniil Medvedev has really slowed down. I like Daniil a lot. I mean, I really, what he did against Novak in the finals of the U.S. Open was amazing, and he's really slowed down recently. He'll be back, though. But I don't think Daniil is going to be a problem for the Americans. Like, I don't think they're not going to be able to beat him. I think the only problem right now is Novak. Carlos Alcaraz, he's great. He's number 1 in the world, but he's very flashy. Like, literally, he loses some he lost to Zverev, and he loses some bad matches. I mean, he's still young, and I still don't think he's going to be even close to a Rafael Nadal or Djokovic. He's just going to be a really, really amazing, great player who wins Grand Slams. Maybe wins 5 or 10 or whatever, but he's not going to win 20, in my opinion. So I don't think he's going to. I don't think Alcaraz is going to wipe out a generation like Federer did. I just don't think he's going to wipe out a whole generation. So what I think is, once Novak slows down, we're going to see real potential for anyone. I mean, Tommy Paul's a great, great player. He could do something really wild like Stan Wawrinka. Stan Wawrinka won 3 Stan Wawrinka won 3 majors, but he was just not that great besides majors. I mean, that was very unique. We haven't really seen that before in tennis history. I think Tommy Paul could do something wild like that. I mean, he has the game to do it.
Now you're projecting him a little higher than you initially did. I thought that's interesting. You see him as having more potential than I do.
He beats great players. I mean, anyone who can beat Diego Schwartzman is like a hero, in my opinion. I mean, Schwartzman's like the toughest player on tour.
He's that guy. Tough out.
Anyone who can beat Schwartzman's impressive. Now, I just think Novak's the only one in the way of American tennis. Like, genuinely, once he retires, Tommy Paul could get hot and beat anyone, and so could Tiafoe. Francis proved it at the U.S. Open. He had a great U.S. Open.
Mm-hmm.
He almost won. I mean, he could have beaten Alcaraz and won the whole tournament. So Francis came a millimeter away from winning the U.S.
He was
Open.
a set away.
Set away.
Set. Yeah.
So I really think that once the great Novak retires or slows down, I think we're going to start seeing wild stuff happen, like with Tiafoe, Fritz, maybe even Opelka, once he's healthy, and Tommy Paul. I mean, those guys are really close in ability. And then we have Jensen Brooksby. I mean, that guy's like literally, we're going to start seeing some wild stuff. Mark my word. Cressy's great. You're going to see Cressy, Brooksby, Opelka, Fritz, Tiafoe, and Paul in quarterfinals. You're going to start seeing like 6 Americans in the quarterfinals of events.
And we haven't even mentioned Korda.
We haven't even mentioned Korda.
Yeah, who's 34 in the world.
Yeah.
And Brandon Nakashima.
I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a nice wave. So basically, the secret sauce is to just control what you can control. The fitness, what you put in your body, and just take that like, okay, look, maybe leave the cell phone out of the equation. I also bet that those 3 dudes aren't on their cell phones like the other. They also probably weren't doing that as much. So they were less distracted.
Stefanos Tsitsipas, he was doing all this crazy tweeting, and his game was a mess. Then he finally stopped it, or he helped stop it, and his game went through the roof. I mean, literally, like his agent was like, put the phone away. I'm telling you, I'm so old school when it comes to work ethic, like Rocky, but you called me Rocky Balboa during the New York Marathon. And I really,
I did.
Yeah, you did. And I believe that, like, if these guys, whoever wants it badly enough, it doesn't matter what country you're from. Agassi proved that, Courier proved that, like, if you are willing to do insane, like, boxing level training and just, be married, like Ivan Lendl is a great example. That guy's a monster, but he was still married. You can still have a wife and family, have a life and have your tight group of friends, but just really bring it to the next level. Marty Fish proved that he lost 30 pounds. If you can do that, you will have a chance at winning a Grand Slam,
Hey, really quick, because we haven't got to the women, and I know you have a hard out. So if we could...
I can extend it a couple minutes if you want.
Just a few, because we're getting close to the end, and I know you're in a car. You're probably pretty much at your destination. What do you... How about Coco and Pegula? You want to talk about those two, or do you have another?
I mean, Coco, I feel like she's 30 years old. She's so mature and so smart, but she's like, what, not even 18 or something?
Just 18. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, literally, she's like so mature for her years. And I think she's finally becoming a threat, to win a major. But women's tennis is, and Pegula is great. I mean, she's fantastic, but it is so deep right now. I mean, the depth is, it's never been deeper. It's never been deeper. And, Alicia Parks, I like her. She's ranked in the top 100 finally, but she can beat anyone. She beat Sakari, and they say Sakari, but I'm Greek. I'm going to call her Sakari. But everyone says Sakari.
You're in the Greek Hall of Fame. Is it the Broadcasting Hall of Fame? Or
no, it's just the Greek Sports Hall of Fame for all sports.
Then I defer to you, sir.
Yeah. So it's pretty special. But it was great. With Sampras is in there.
Yeah, I saw that.
I got inducted with Philippoussis, which was pretty special. God. Yeah, that was just very nice. So but regardless, like, I mean, Pegula is great. We have great players. It's just women's tennis is so versatile, and literally anyone can win a major at this point, which is unheard of. It never used to be like that. So it's kind of confusing because new players come up, and we all know you can be like Martina Hingis or Jennifer Capriati, and you can win an age, at a young age, at 16. So we're just seeing more and more young stars, and, Osaka's slowed down. Serena's now retired, and Azarenka's slowing down, and it's we'll see more Americans win.
I think you're right. I think that, boy, the depth, that it's hard to keep track for me of just what you said. If I went through the top 10, I have a hard time pronouncing the last names, not just of a Greek player, but the list of some of the Eastern European players. It's insane. But in the U.S., it's almost like the guys. It's pretty similar, the number of players they have in the top 50. So it's a unique situation. I hope they do. They have their breakthrough. You mentioned
Well, we're
Coco.
not desperate. We're not desperate. Sorry for interrupting, Brett. We're not desperate on the women's tour. I mean, Serena carried the torch. Sloane Stevens has won. I mean, Sloane Stevens won. I mean, Sophia Kenin. We're not desperate at all. Like, we've done great. We continue to do great. Like, we have a big drought in men's tennis. That's what, and that's like really, curse of the Bambino, Babe Ruth level stuff with the Boston Red Sox. I mean, this is getting pretty deep, and we have to break through. The women's tour, we've done great. We continue to do great, and we'll always do great. And don't be surprised if we win another major in the next year or two.
Yeah, you're probably right. I would put my stock in Coco because she is only 18. It seems like she's 30. She got to the final at the French last year. So I think she's got the goods. Pegula is interesting. I think she finished the year in the top 3. I just don't know if she's got enough weaponry to win a major. But I think she'll be in a final. And like you mentioned, Sloane Stevens, she started to get a little hot towards the end of the year. Kenin, who unfortunately is now like 237, it just takes a few things to get it.
Yeah. No, I mean, but again, women's tennis, these ladies are amazing. The depth is, I'd be a fool to even try to predict because literally no one knows because it's just so deep right now. But we're not struggling in American women's tennis. I mean, Jennifer Brady, Danielle Collins, just the list, just go Coco, of course, Goff. The list goes on and on and on. Pegula, we're not struggling. We're great. And we're going to have Grand Slam champions just like we always have. And and I'm proud. I'm proud of them. Kathy Rinaldi does a great job with the Fed Cup, Billie Jean King Cup. And Coco, I will say, though, we're all holding our breath for Coco because, I mean, I love Donald Young. I mean, he's a very good friend of mine, but he never won a major. And, we kind of want Coco to win a major. And if she doesn't, it will be a disappointment,
Yeah, because she was right. Because having like Donald, I mean, he was touted earlier than
she's very similar. Like they really kind of got her at a young age and had high hopes, and they gave her a lot of opportunities and wild cards. And Donald, who is an absolute veteran and champion, and he really has earned his respect. But he'll be the first to say those wild cards maybe hurt him. Like it hurt him, and Coco got a lot of the wild cards, and it's paying off. But until she wins a major, we're all sort of holding our breath.
Yeah, you're right about that. We do have that high expectation of being an actual major champion, and I again, that's a pretty safe bet. Last thing that I found was interesting, and this was sort of a shocker to me, that Venus Williams, she got a wild card into the Australian Open. Like, she hardly plays at all, and then she goes down there. So that's hey, do what you want to do, but that's always interesting to me. She's like 40, I think 41. So I don't expect she's going to win more than maybe.
Well, no, she loves tennis, and she just loves it. And she's college educated now. She got her degree, and she does a lot of designing and stuff for houses, and she has a big business and career. And I think she realizes that when you get to the real world, there's nothing better than being a player in the U.S. Open or Wimbledon. And it's like, if I can keep doing this in singles or doubles or mixed doubles, like, why not? Like, some people just don't understand. Life is so short. Life is so precious. And if you really break it down and you really audit, like do an audit, be like, what would I rather do? Be in an office or be playing in the U.S. Open? Forget the media, forget all the, the mean people. I'm playing at the U.S. Open, getting paid like $20,000 per match, $40,000 per match. Yeah. Let's just play mixed doubles. Just play mixed doubles. This is fun. Like, Leighton Hewitt just kept playing, just play. Like, play and who cares, like, what people say. And that's what Venus is like. I don't care. Like, I'm in the Hall of Fame anyway. Like, I would rather be playing. What would I rather do? Go to a meeting and have to do a negotiation for $20,000? Or would I rather be at Wimbledon and have people drive me around a Mercedes-Benz and sign autographs for $20,000? I can ignore the media. That's literally, she's smart. She's like, I'm going to ignore these people that are saying that I'm a has-been, and I'm just going to enjoy playing at the All England Club and the U.S. Open on TV. And I love this sport, you know?
That's a whole separate podcast. I would love to delve into something like that because we have so many examples, people giving Murray a hard time about it. And what you're talking
Murray,
about, what you're talking about is just, guys, look, this is what they've done their whole lives, and they love it, and they're still motivated to go through it. It's a very interesting topic. I think it's a good one to end on because we ended on a positive note with Venus going down to Australia, and optimist. No worries with the U.S. women players, and I think from what you're telling me, encouragement with the men. That's my takeaway.
100%. I mean, it's, I just genuinely like Novak Djokovic is really the only thing in the way of an American Grand Slam champion. I mean, Taylor Fritz can beat Alcaraz. Someone can beat Medvedev. Like Medvedev might lose anyway, just because he's good, but he's not he's not, Federer and, or anything like that. So it's really just Djokovic because Novak showed during the year-end championship that he's not stopping and he can beat anyone and he can run the table against anyone. Once that slows down, Taylor Fritz and Tiafoe have the goods, and they've proved it with Indian Wells and Tiafoe at the U.S. Open. They have the goods to win a major, literally, and they're ready to do it. And Opelka might even, but when Tommy Paul could go deep, but not with Djokovic around. So it really all depends on that,
Yeah, he's, as Brad Gilbert would say, he's like Freddy Krueger, nightmare.
Yeah,
that's what Gilbert said about Lendl. So yeah, he really is. I really appreciate your insights and taking time, to talk with us and me. And is that a Christmas sweater you got on?
Yeah, it is.
The best. Yeah, of course it is. Nice. You bring in the holidays beautifully, my man. Hey,
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks for everything. It's an honor. You're a great friend, and you're awesome for tennis.
You are too, bro. And let's not wait, 7 years, whatever it's been. Anytime you need any input for world tennis, I could even write. I used to be a tennis writer. Don't know if you knew that. I was a writer.
Awesome.
Yeah. So anyways, hey, happy holidays, brother.
Thank you. Okay,
folks. We're going to let Harry go. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, even check out World Tennis, hosted by Harry Cicma, if you want more of his commentary and just his overall great vibe. So again, thanks, folks, and happy holidays. Feliz Navidad.